I think the number one question we need to get to the bottom of is the abysmal failure of U.S. and Israeli intelligence in failing to anticipate or react to what happened, and the abysmal failure of the defense.
Now, the reality is what happened in Israel was barbaric. The attack was medieval in its nature. It was inhumane. It is an atrocity of a scale that no nation should have to go through, and Israel has absolutely the fullest right to defend itself and its national existence. And the job of an ally like the United States is to stand morally with Israel and to stand diplomatically with Israel. Now, this is in our national self-interest to make sure that Israel is successful, and I believe Israel will be successful in defending its own border, in recapturing the territory that in recent days has been captured. But our main job is to make sure that Israel is armed and equipped to defend itself, while also taking a reminder here at home that if that can happen in Israel, we live in a moment where that can happen right here at home. Our borders are more porous than they have ever been. Israel's government is divided. That's part of potentially why this attack was able to be successful. We're as divided as we've ever been in our politics. And so the job of a U.S. president is at once to make sure that our allies know that we have their diplomatic back and our moral backing, but at the same time, use it as a catalyst and a reminder to ourselves that we can't be complacent here. The last area where I depart a little bit from the status quo view of both major parties is that there was a major, and it was a major, intelligence and Israeli defense failure in what happened in Israel. And what everybody else is saying is that's a question for later, but we need to get to the bottom of that. I disagree. I think that is a question for now. We need to understand what went wrong there. It was badly wrong. It's the 50-year anniversary of the Yom Kippur attack of 1973. It was heightened security environment. We need to understand what went wrong. And if an airplane crashes, the black box, when it's recovered, they don't hand it to the airliner whose crash it was to analyze it. Somebody independent who looks at it. And so right now, there are going to be major consequences as a result of the decisions that are made in the next 24, 48, 72 hours and over the next 1 to 2 weeks. If those decisions are made through the same apparatus or to fuel the same apparatus that failed this badly on an attack that never should have been allowed to happen, then we may be at risk of making even worse mistakes if we don't just take the short time to really understand why the heck that was permitted to happen. Yes, we have to keep our commitments to Israel. They are a friend of the United States, our closest friend in the Middle East. And especially in an era where we will need to turn our attention to the real enemy, that's China, we need a reliable partner in the Middle East who looks after our shared interests and shared objectives. Top of the list is making sure that Iran never ever becomes nuclear equipped. So the reality, though, is that it's not enough to just say, because sometimes these foreign policy discussions become so reductionist. Is it more aid or less aid? Goes back to that question I just asked. It doesn't matter if the way that Israel is able to defend itself with U.S. intelligence sharing, and the U.S. probably bears some responsibility for this too, results in a massive failure like the one that we had. And so for politics and for headline-grabbing purposes and for politicians scoring points, you can talk about more or less. The thing that actually matters is how effective is the establishment in each of those countries in even achieving those same objectives. And I think we have to get to the bottom of that question before we have superficial, debates about what number of this or what number of that. How did this happen? Against the backdrop of consistent U.S. allyship, supposedly, intelligence sharing, supposedly. That's a question that we need the answer to, or else we're just going to skip that and debate all of the other politically popular topics to debate without getting to the heart of the matter of what really happened.
I'm running against a system that produces these neocon puppets, and we need to restore America First principles. The moral obligation of the U.S. president is to look after American citizens here in the homeland. And I think anybody who takes a different view is not suited to be our commander-in-chief. They can go serve in multilateral international institutions, but for the White House, we need a president who looks after the interests of Americans. And it's going to take a new generation of leadership to do that. That's why I'm in this race.